Hey guys, tonight we're staying up way past bedtime, and I swear the air already feels heavier than usual, like it's holding secrets it isn't ready to share. You wake to the familiar hum of rain against the window, except something is off. Not the weather. That's predictable, but your entire town feels unstitched. Streets you walk daily are absent on maps. Your favorite coffee shop vanished from search results. Even your social media mentions have evaporated. It's as if someone pressed delete on reality while you slept. You'll wish you never looked out that window, trust me. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment with your current local time and one creepy thing in your room right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The morning begins strangely quiet, your fingers brushing over your phone screen, trying to locate any sign of life. Even the search for your high school yields nothing. No alumni pages, no faculty contacts, nothing. Experts still argue whether digital erasure can ever be a symptom of supernatural interference, but you know in your gut this isn't a technical glitch. Your brother, Lucas, nudges you awake, eyes wide with that same pale urgency you've seen only a few times in your life. Check the streets, he whispers. You follow him to the window and stare out into the mist-shrouded trees that skirt your street, feeling the floorboards breathe beneath your feet. The rain clings to your hair and cheeks, turning everything into a blurry haze. Out there, through the falling mist, something massive moves, too fluid, too fast for a human shape. A tree shudders violently as it passes, snapping a branch that clatters onto the neighbor's roof. A scream follows, thin and human, but distant, swallowed instantly by the thick gray fog. Your parents react immediately, ushering both of you away from the window with an intensity bordering on panic. Their eyes are wide, almost blank, a silent scream trapped behind their expressions. You feel the weight of their fear like gravity pressing down. The blackout isn't just darkness, it's a living silence. The world outside seems to have exhaled and stopped every usual suburban hum. Car engines, cicadas, distant dogs, vanished into a vacuum. One real-world fact you note with creeping unease. Power outages are common in valleys during storms, but this feels calculated, deliberate, as if the night itself is manipulating the world to isolate you. The wind gusts against the eaves, rattling loose shingles, and you notice that even the familiar rhythm of raindrops feels hollow, almost echoing. Your brother gestures toward the woods again, pointing at something darting between tree trunks. It's massive, but almost impossibly graceful, limbs bending in ways that shouldn't bend, gliding through shadows as though it's carved from darkness itself. Internet legend has it that certain forested towns report sightings of the Watchers, impossibly large creatures whose presence coincides with mass disappearances. But those are just stories, right? And yet here, staring into the rain-soaked forest, you wonder. As the day drags on, the power remains dead. Your parents keep you tethered inside, moving from the kitchen to the living room, forcing activity to stave off fear. Lucas tries to sneak a peek outside, but their warnings come in the form of lethal stares. Time passes strangely, and boredom blends with anxiety until it's almost another entity in the house. You find an old horror paperback and let it swallow you, each page pulling you further into imagined basements and creatures that, ironically, feel safer than what might be waiting beyond the windows. By late afternoon, the rain doesn't stop, and the mist thickens into a soft wall, obscuring familiar landmarks. The world feels like it's collapsing inward. You hear the faintest clicking from the street outside, one tap, then another. Lucas freezes, listening. You both exchange a glance. Whatever is out there is studying you, mapping weaknesses, testing boundaries. The urban legend of synchronized clicking in certain disappearing towns echoes in your mind. Experts still debate if this is an auditory hallucination under extreme stress or a warning signal from something alive, but right now, you have no room for debates. Hours pass. Shadows grow longer, stretching unnaturally as the dim light bends through the mist. Every now and then, you think you see a figure, tall and hunched, passing between your neighbors' houses, only to vanish the instant you blink. Your pulse races, every floorboard creak magnified into a thunderclap. The silence presses harder, interrupted only by distant taps and the occasional tree groan, and you realize the first lesson of Harrow Vale. You can't trust the familiar. Night falls like a velvet trap, and the blackout deepens. You and Lucas cling to the window frames, watching the fog thicken into an almost solid wall, the streetlights non-existent, swallowed by some unseen hand. Every shadow seems to ripple and breathe. The dripping rain now forms tiny rivers along the asphalt, reflecting flashes of movement that vanish when you blink. Your parents sit rigidly in the living room, neither speaking nor looking at each other, eyes fixed on a world that might already be gone. You feel the floorboards hum beneath your feet, as if the house itself is straining under some invisible weight. Then comes the first knocking. Rat-tap, soft at first, polite almost, like a neighbor asking for sugar. But your gut tells you it's no neighbor. The pattern escalates quickly, as if the rhythm itself carries intelligence, testing doors, windows, and walls. Lucas whispers that he can hear small footsteps circling, light but deliberate. You lean closer, noticing the oddity. The knocking seems almost musical, patterned like Morse code, yet impossibly fast. It is here you recall an internet tidbit, an old creepypasta about the rhythm dwellers, entities that communicate through percussive tapping to locate the living. You force a laugh, though it tastes like ash in your mouth. Your father's behavior grows stranger. Every time a tap echoes against the walls, he moves like clockwork, checks the window, checks his phone, back to the window, then phone again. The tension in the air is tangible, almost physical, and you begin to notice a subtle tremor in the walls, like the house is vibrating with anxiety. Experts still argue whether humans can sense low-frequency vibrations from predators before visual confirmation, but you'd swear it is true tonight. By late evening, the tapping turns into clicking, sharper and faster, creating an almost deafening staccato. The creatures are out there, beyond the veil of fog, circling, waiting. You catch glimpses of them, too tall, limbs too elongated, movements that defy skeletal logic. One appears at a neighbor's window, a massive black eye pressing against the glass, scanning the room like it's calculating how many of you remain inside. Lucas freezes, whispers that it's following the slight twitch of your father's fingers on the gun trigger. You shiver. Instinctively, you press a finger to your lips, echoing the unspoken lesson. Any noise could betray your location. The tension inside the house becomes almost unbearable. Your mother attempts to maintain normalcy, moving between rooms with whispered instructions to remain calm. Yet every motion carries the weight of someone teetering on the edge of panic. Even the mundane, a cup of tea, the shuffling of chairs, feels like a potential signal to whatever stalks the fog outside. A real-world fact drifts through your mind. Certain nocturnal predators are drawn to sound, even minimal vibrations, which makes perfect sense in the context of these creatures. Hours pass. You and Lucas take turns peeking through the blinds, catching fragments of impossible silhouettes slipping through the mist. Limbs bending, torsos elongating, heads swiveling like hunting owls. The urban legend of the Harrow Vale vanishings runs through your mind, a story about towns that flicker in and out of existence, people erased as though they never lived. You feel the first knot of dread in your stomach, realizing the legends might not be exaggeration. Then the real panic begins. A loud, insistent pounding erupts at the front door. Rat-tap-tap, 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 until the noise blends into an overwhelming cacophony. You watch as your father, pale and taut with fear, rises slowly, placing his hand over his mouth to stifle a shout. Your mother curls into herself, rocking slightly, murmuring fragments of reassurance she doesn't seem to believe. Lucas grabs your sleeve, shaking lightly, his eyes wide. It isn't the knocking that terrifies you. It's the knowledge that there is no negotiation here. Whatever is outside doesn't respond to reasoning. Through the haze, you notice the shape of one creature advancing, taller than any man, moving with predatory grace. Its legs bend backward at impossible angles, trailing fins that scrape against the soaked ground. It pauses in front of the Hallows house, which you remember from childhood walks, and without warning, a human form emerges from the window. The creature cradles the figure gently yet mechanically, as if it understands the fragility of its prey but cares nothing for life itself. The clicking and tapping escalate into a deafening chorus, the rhythm now a siren call of obliteration. Time collapses. The world narrows to the living room. The two of you pressed against each other, watching your parents' every move. You begin to notice the first signs of withdrawal. They no longer speak, do not make eye contact, only respond in the smallest, most mechanical gestures to the horror surrounding them. Your brother whispers that he's heard stories of people in towns like this who become catatonic in the presence of predators, a chilling reminder that survival isn't just physical, it's psychological. By dawn, the storm begins to ebb. The fog lingers, dense and thick, but the rhythmic pounding has faded to distant echoes. Shadows of tall shapes still flit along the street beyond, but the immediate threat seems to have passed. You feel no relief, only the raw understanding that this is a prelude, that the creatures are calculating, returning later, and that Harrowvale will not remain familiar for long. You glance at Lucas, the two of you silently acknowledging that survival depends on vigilance, courage, and luck beyond comprehension. Outside, the mist rolls over empty streets, consuming familiar landmarks, and a creeping realization sets in. Your hometown, your life as you knew it, may already be gone. The first lesson of this night is clear. Nothing is permanent here, and whatever is watching, listening, and calculating will not forget. The morning arrives not with sunlight, but with a gray, suffocating haze that drapes the town in a permanent twilight. You and Lucas huddle near the window again, peering out at streets that look familiar yet entirely alien. Homes are hollowed-out shells, some scorched, some broken, and all silent. Even the small animals that should skitter and chirp are nowhere to be seen. A neighbor's dog, Caesar, should have been yapping at squirrels or the wind, but the world has been stripped of its background noise. The quiet presses in like water, filling every cavity of your mind with unease. You recall a real-world fact about sensory deprivation. The brain begins to hallucinate when deprived of even small ambient noises. You wonder if that is what your eyes are tricking you with, or if the horrors outside are simply waiting their turn. The clicking begins again, this time from the distance of the street. You hear it layering with a rhythmic, almost musical pattern, as if hundreds of invisible legs march in sync. Lucas stiffens, whispering that it sounds like the creatures are checking each house individually, seeking weaknesses. You recognize the sound from the urban legend of the Echo Walkers, a story told online about beings that erase entire towns, one building at a time. The tale claimed that survivors could identify them by their distinct tapping and clicking, a deadly signature of their presence. Experts still argue whether such mass disappearances could ever happen naturally, but here, with the quiet and fog wrapping the world, you aren't questioning the possibility anymore. Your father finally stirs from the living room, moving like a man walking through molasses. He retrieves a few long-neglected supplies from a closet, including the last remaining firearms. He doesn't speak, only nods toward the door as if acknowledging a shared understanding. They cannot face what lurks outside without careful calculation. Your mother, still pale and withdrawn, offers only a brief glance before returning to tasks that seem meaningless in a world that has already ended. Lucas grips your arm, silent, his gaze fixed on a shadow shifting across the yard. You see it too, a creature, towering and spindly, moving with deliberate purpose, and for a moment you catch a glint of something like intelligence in its unblinking eye. The rhythm escalates. You can no longer distinguish individual taps. It has become a symphony of calculation, an organized hunt. You remember an old online thread claiming that certain creatures are capable of predicting human behavior based purely on sound, adjusting their approach in real time. You'd scoffed at that story once, but now, crouched in a darkened house, every nerve taut, it seems possible. You feel your heartbeat hammering in time with the tapping. At midday, a soft knocking pulls your attention toward the front door. Relief hits briefly. You hope it's a human, but the moment your father peers through the peephole, he freezes. Outside stands Mr. Hallow, his expression unreadable, the rain plastering his hair to his face. He doesn't knock again, but lifts a hand, gesturing hurriedly. Lucas exhales sharply. You sense the danger immediately. Any delay could be fatal. Your father opens the door. Mr. Hallow steps inside, soaked, carrying nothing but determination and a grim urgency. Behind him, Alice lingers, silent but watching. He explains the situation in jagged bursts, barely catching his breath. One of the creatures infiltrated the Hallow house, he says, trapped in the basement temporarily. You glance at your father, seeing the same cold understanding in his eyes. Containment is temporary. They will return. Alice confirms, her voice trembling, that her mother disappeared into the fog during the attack, pulled by one of the creatures as she reached the window. The detail sends a shiver down your spine. Every family in the town has been compromised, every safe space violated. The urban legend of vanishing towns isn't just a story anymore. It's happening. You and Lucas exchange silent, fearful glances. There's no time to mourn the missing or debate morality. Survival requires movement. Mr. Hallow urges immediate action. Weapons are gathered. Pistols, a few knives, improvised clubs, and you notice the strange combination of ritualistic calm and underlying terror in their preparation. Your father, still stoic, provides what support he can but refuses to leave the house himself. It's a choice of protection versus engagement, and the weight of it presses on you. Experts still argue whether it's better to confront or evade predators that can think faster than humans. Right now, instinct leans toward evasion, though your heart races knowing some must engage or perish. The decision is made. You will follow Mr. Hallow through the fog, seeking signs of the missing while avoiding the creatures. You notice the world outside your familiar door has become alien. Streets twist unnaturally, buildings loom taller, angles seem wrong. Even the sky seems heavier, like it's pressing down on the fog itself. An internet tidbit comes to mind. Survivors of similar disappearances often describe a sense of warped reality, where towns feel alive, rearranging themselves. You wonder if you're imagining it, or if the creatures outside have changed the landscape itself. Lucas holds your hand as you step out into the damp, suffocating mist. Every step feels calculated, measured, as the sound of clicking pulses in your chest. You pass empty yards where cars are overturned, debris scattered, and signs of frantic departures abandoned. It's a gallery of erasure. You glimpse shapes flitting between buildings, tall, limber silhouettes bending unnaturally, moving with a deliberate intelligence. You swallow hard, fighting a rising nausea. The creature's approach isn't chaotic. It's methodical, systematic, as if the town itself is being scanned, evaluated, and erased block by block. The first encounter happens near a shattered storefront. Two figures, once human, leap into a pit that has opened in the basement below, hand in hand. The impact sends a wet, echoing sound through the air. You freeze, unable to look away, as the rhythmic pulse beneath the pit grows louder, like a heartbeat but magnified, omnipresent, inescapable. Lucas whispers that it drinks the blood, and you nod silently, too afraid to speak. The urban legend of blood-feeding subterranean predators, dismissed as fantasy, is manifesting before your eyes. You feel the first real panic of the mission. Every step forward might be your last. You realize that whatever remains of your town isn't just abandoned. It's actively hunted, erased, consumed, and calculated. Each street is a gauntlet. The fog hides predators and opportunities alike. And in that moment, you understand a chilling truth. Survival isn't about running fast. It's about anticipating an intelligence far older and more calculating than any human. The creatures are not random. They are architects of extinction, and the town is their canvas. By the time you reach the edge of what used to be Main Street, the fog has thickened, wrapping the town in a damp, gray cocoon that dulls sound and sight alike. Lucas clutches your hand tighter with each step, his knuckles white. The clicking has slowed, replaced now by heavy, dragging footsteps somewhere beneath the mist. It's hard to tell whether the noise comes from behind, ahead, or within the warped geometry of the streets themselves. You recall a real-world fact. Human perception can easily misjudge distance in dense fog, often making threats feel closer than they are, or more distant, lulling you into a fatal sense of security. You swear the buildings themselves have shifted, subtly, like the town has become a labyrinth designed by a predator that knows exactly how to manipulate your fear. Mr. Hallow leads the way, his voice a hushed cadence of authority and dread. "Stay low. Stick close. Don't make a sound," he whispers. Behind him, Alice follows, glancing over her shoulder every few seconds, her small frame trembling. Your father remains at a distance, silently covering your retreat from a higher vantage point. You notice that he hasn't taken his eyes off the shadowed outlines between the fog-drenched houses. Each shape could be empty, or it could contain the creatures that erased your town. Experts still argue whether such large, coordinated predators could exist undetected, hidden from human knowledge, but your senses scream that this is no longer speculation. The survivors guide you to the gas station on the edge of town, untouched by chaos but eerily quiet. The pumps are idle, and the interior smells faintly of diesel and antiseptic. You can't help but notice the contrast. The outside is a war zone, yet inside, time has frozen. An urban legend flits through your memory about pocket towns, where small clusters of buildings are preserved during mass disappearances, as if the predator's reach has a limit or preference. You don't dare test it. Every minute outside carries imminent danger. Alice points to a back staircase leading to a storage room. "We should check here," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. The steps creak under your weight, and you feel the tension in your chest coil tighter with every motion. You recall reading that human anxiety heightens with the unpredictability of sound, which explains why each floorboard thump feels like a drumbeat heralding doom. In the storage room, crates line the walls, some toppled, some broken. You find provisions, canned goods, bottled water, and a few dusty flashlights. Lucas grabs one, clicking it on. The beam slices through the foggy interior, catching motes of dust that drift like tiny phantoms. Suddenly, a noise outside freezes you in place. The soft thud of something landing on the roof above echoes, followed by a series of clicking sounds. You and Lucas press yourselves against the crates, hearts hammering. Mr. Hallow whispers that the creatures are checking the building's integrity. They're calculating. You feel a surge of panic. These beings are not mindless. They are predators who observe, analyze, and exploit weakness. The real-world fact strikes again. Many large predators use calculated hunting techniques, circling prey, testing boundaries, and striking when least expected. You've entered their hunting ground, and survival is a precarious gamble. Alice shudders. "I think I saw something, my mom," she says softly, tears forming in her eyes. You realize she is grappling with a cruel possibility. Her mother may have been consumed by the creatures, swallowed into the town's fog and mystery. The narrative of the vanished town you once dismissed as an online horror story is unfolding in real time, and it's personal now. You struggle to keep your own fear in check, feeling a mix of guilt and helplessness. From above, the dragging steps return, louder this time, accompanied by a faint, almost melodic clicking. The creature's patrol is systematic. They circle, measure, and assess. You remember an internet tidbit about survivors who reported hearing a heartbeat in empty towns, only to discover later that it was the predator's rhythmic, communal movement. Lucas stiffens, whispering that the rhythm is almost like a language. You aren't sure if you want to believe him. Mr. Hallow gestures to a back exit. We move fast, quietly. Stick to shadows. They don't seem to like wide-open areas, he instructs. You follow, noticing how the fog seems denser near open spaces, like it's being funneled or drawn toward some unseen gravity. Experts still argue whether mass disappearance phenomena are spatially selective, but your instincts scream that the town is alive with purpose. You feel your pulse echoing the creature's rhythm, a morbid synchrony that gnaws at your resolve. You reach the car parked behind the gas station, a rusted sedan that seems untouched by the chaos. Mr. Hallow quickly checks the surrounding streets, ensuring no movement. Alice climbs in first, then Lucas, and finally you. The engine sputters to life, an unlikely reprieve from the oppressive silence outside. Your father's eyes meet yours from the distant edge of town. He nods once, heavy with warning, survive. You understand the gravity. Beyond this point, there's no going back. As you drive, the distorted town stretches endlessly. Familiar intersections twist, and houses that should be symmetrical now appear tilted, unnaturally long, or oddly compressed. The fog follows, curling around the sedan like fingers, whispering with wind and rain. The creature's clicks and thuds echo in the distance, sometimes behind, sometimes in front, disorienting you. You realize the urban legends were accurate. The town itself isn't just erased, it's reshaped, manipulated to trap or confuse survivors. Hours pass. You glimpse a massive silhouette crossing the main avenue behind you, 3 times the size of any human. Lucas swears it has smaller legs trailing behind, almost useless, and fins, or fins like appendages, moving with uncanny rhythm. You force your gaze back to the road, heart hammering. Experts still debate the cognitive capabilities of such hypothetical predators, but you've witnessed intelligence, strategy, and a cruel kind of patience. The realization hits you. Every step the creatures take is premeditated, every move designed to maximize terror. By nightfall, the fog begins to thin, revealing the distant outline of White Valley, a town untouched by the horrors that decimated your hometown. The streets here are alive with muted light, signs of human habitation, and the low hum of civilization. Relief washes over you, but it's thin, fragile, tinged with the knowledge that the nightmare isn't over, it only paused. Mr. Hallow exhales, shoulders sagging, and Alice leans against the window, silent tears glistening. Lucas grips your hand again, whispering that you survived, but the memory of the creature's calculated hunt will linger, gnawing at your peace for a long, long time. You drive into White Valley, the fog finally receding, and for the first time in days, you can see stars above. But a lingering dread remains. Follaton is not gone, not completely. Its streets, its fog, its creatures are waiting, perhaps for others, perhaps for you someday. The rhythm of clicking, distant yet eternal, pulses in your memory as a morbid echo of what was and what could be again. The first thing you notice about White Valley is how ordinary it looks, almost cruelly normal after the nightmare you've survived. Streetlights buzz faintly in the distance, a soft hum of life you'd almost forgotten existed. Yet even here, every shadow feels a little too deep, every corner too quiet. Lucas keeps glancing behind, as if expecting the creatures, or the fog itself, to follow. You try to reassure him with a light joke, something about how at least there's no clicking this time, but your own voice sounds hollow, betraying your fear. Experts still argue whether trauma-induced paranoia can persist in entirely safe spaces, and right now, you're living proof that it can. You pull the car into a narrow side street, guided by Mr. Hallow, who seems to know someone here. Alice stays silent, her small hand still clutching yours. You notice the real-world oddity. Even a few hours of sleep deprivation and fear can distort perception, making ordinary street signs seem alien, familiar faces uncanny. A thin drizzle begins, pattering against the windshield. You remember reading about the Fata Morgana effect, a mirage-like optical phenomenon that can make distant objects appear closer or taller, which explains why the street lamps seem to bend and twist unnaturally in the fog. They lead you to a small, humble house on the edge of town. The inhabitants, a middle-aged couple, usher you inside with hurried gestures. They do not ask questions. They do not comment on your soaked clothes, your wild eyes, or the subtle tremor in your hands. The real-world fact sinks in again. Humans often react to extreme trauma by focusing only on immediate survival, suppressing curiosity for safety's sake. Alice curls up on a couch, her breathing slow but uneven. Lucas sits beside her, knees drawn up. You sink into an armchair, feeling the tension in your body begin to unravel, just a little. Hours pass in near silence. Outside, the rain eases and the wind dies down. You notice a subtle, almost eerie calm settling over the valley. It feels like a lull before a storm, or perhaps a false sense of security. You pull out your phone, finally able to connect to the sparse signal. Searching for Follaton City returns nothing, as expected, but you find threads on obscure forums about disappearing towns, vanishing clusters, and ghost fogs that eerily match your experience. An urban legend about towns erased from memory flickers in your mind, places where entire populations vanish without record, leaving behind distorted landscapes only visible to survivors. The experts still debate whether these accounts are exaggerated, fabricated, or the product of collective hysteria, but you've lived it, and the line between myth and reality has been obliterated. Alice finally speaks, her voice a small, hesitant whisper. "Do you think my mom?" She doesn't finish. You know the answer, and yet, words fail. The creatures weren't mindless, they were precise. They had calculated, manipulated, and eliminated anyone in their path. Her mother, your father, Mr. Hallow's wife. They are likely gone, or worse, altered by whatever hunger rules this fogged nightmare. Lucas leans against the couch, silent, processing. The weight of survivors' guilt presses down on you. Each breath a reminder that luck, not skill or courage, saved you this time. The night deepens, but sleep doesn't come. You wander to the porch, gazing at the distant hills, the faint glow of White Valley stretching before you. A faint clicking tickles the edges of your hearing, or maybe it's the echo of memory, the rhythm of what hunted you in Follaton City. You remember the internet tidbit about people who claimed they could hear the heartbeat of vanished towns. Those who survived the initial horror could still sense the pulse in empty spaces. You shiver, realizing that the fog, the clicking, the creature's patience is not bound by geography. It's a memory, a rhythm that lingers in minds scarred by proximity. You whisper a soft vow. The story of Follaton City must be preserved. Whether anyone believes it or not, the survivors must testify, must leave traces. You note the oddest fact. Collective memory, both digital and oral, can preserve places even when the physical world erases them. In a sense, your story becomes a talisman, a fragile line of defense against being forgotten. Lucas nods, understanding without words. Alice curls closer to him, exhausted but alive. Morning comes, muted and gentle. The survivors cautiously venture outside. White Valley streets hum with subdued life. Bird song, distant chatter, the occasional passing car. Yet even here, you can't shake the feeling that Follaton City is still alive somewhere, reshaped and waiting, perhaps for another unwary town, another unlucky family, another set of eyes to witness its horrors. Experts still debate whether such predatory anomalies are natural, supernatural, or a convergence of both, but the truth is irrelevant. Survival, memory, and storytelling are what matter now. You take one last look toward the hills where Follaton City should have been. Nothing remains visible, yet in your mind, the fog, the clicking, the towering figures are indelible. The town is gone, but its echo is preserved in your consciousness. You know, in some deep and irrational part of your brain, that it watches, waits, and remembers you, even as you step fully into the safety of White Valley. The car doors close, engines hum, and for the first time, you feel a tentative thread of relief. But the rhythm of those clicks, the memory of the creature's calculated movements, will haunt you forever, proof that some nightmares, once lived, never truly end. Hey, so now that we've reached a momentary pause, take a deep breath with me. The fog has thinned, the creatures receded, and the streets of White Valley feel safe, at least for now. But even in this calm, you feel the rhythm of what you witnessed lingering behind your eyes, in the soft hum of distant traffic, in the way shadows stretch across the walls. It's okay to let your mind relax a little, to sink into the notion that the horrors were real, but paused. Memories, like fog, shift and settle, leaving impressions that feel heavier than they look. You'll notice how the quiet can be comforting, yet unsettling. This is normal. Your senses, primed by fear, are still tracing patterns, expecting movement, expecting clicks. Experts suggest that the brain keeps heightened awareness long